This is going to be our job and internship search strategies workshop. I'm Joseph Chitana, career advisor with the FIU Career and Talent Development Department, and I am the career advisor specifically for college of engineering. So everything, from mechanical, civil, electrical, I see every college of engineering student except for computer science IT. So we'll jump straight into the content of our workshop today. Okay, so we send a newsletter every 2 weeks. I think the last one, today's what, Thursday was yesterday. It might be the last one for the semester, but it's usually twice a month every semester, and it has, a ton of different jobs, internships, employer info sessions, workshops, like upcoming things specific to engineering students. So if you have the chance to, take a look at it, it's really a good resource. It's sent to your FIU student email address. I know sometimes like with FIU, your emails could get lost in a whole like list of emails. But if you are in that internship or job search mode, or you're just looking to kind of better yourself or develop, some career related skills or skill sets, then this would be a good newsletter to look out for. All right, so some learning objectives for today. We're going to be talking about the advantages of internships, how to set job search goals. We're going to talk about a variety of different methods you can use to look for those opportunities. And then, like strategies that ultimately will help you succeed or set you up for success in that whole process. So 20.2 million, that's how many students are currently enrolled in, higher ed institutions across the US. So you can kind of see from this map here, of course, FIU down there in the southeast. Yeah, got that right. And you can kind of see that schools are everywhere across all 50 states. And then 1.9 million, that's how many students are on average are going to graduate this semester. So essentially that is what your competition is. So this question is, there's something that those 20.2 million students and those 1.9 recent grads are currently looking for. And I guess you can kind of tell from the title of this workshop what that would be. And essentially it would be, and this part right here, currently unemployed or career changers looking for jobs or internships. So we're gonna kind of get in depth with this, and we're gonna start off with a tiny bit about branding. So when it comes to the whole job and internship search process, again, you can see from those numbers, it's a big pool of people that, employers have to pull from. So thinking about your brand and what sets you apart could be something that it should be something that you really think about when you are in that, search process. And that brand could kind of mean a variety of different things, just a couple of things here to kind of get through the slide: who you are, how are you great, why you should be sought out. And then just from these three, this thing here about reputation, building a name for yourself, what sets you apart from others. And that part here about showcasing what sets you apart is usually in the form of different skills. What added value do you bring compared to someone else? And when it comes to like the resume, your LinkedIn profile, your online profiles doesn't always have to be just LinkedIn. The way you, effectively sell your skill sets in a cover letter, just all of those different factors kind of play into what your brand is. And I'll kind of touch, it's going to make a bit more sense in a couple of slides if you're confused about this. So some experiences that can help you brainstorm or think about what sets you apart from other, candidates, whether it's for that job or that internship. Of course, employment, different types of volunteer experiences. If you're involved with any leadership, organizations or positions, obviously, of course, this one, EMBS, or if you're in like SHEP or, NSBE, SWE, those are all wonderful experiences to help set you apart, especially if you have a leadership position on the executive board or e-board. If you are someone who is kind of pursuing like the academic route or faculty research type thing, of course, those are ways that you could help stand out with those publications and the types of research that you've done. If you have done an internship, that's one of the number one ways that plays into your brand and is one of the number one experiences that helps set engineering students apart from their competition, which are other engineering students. Your academic projects, specifically your senior design, if that's where you are at this point. It could be other smaller projects, just depending on what you want to do in terms of your career in the short term and the long term. Just kind of wording those projects, at least on the resume, in a way that helps clarify what your brand is, what your research interests are, what your industry specific interests are. Those are just some ways to kind of think about that. Competitions, certifications. I know for competitions, I believe it's, what's it called again? The Panther Motorsports club at EC. They do a lot of competitions with the car stuff, specifically, I think, for mechanical. That's one thing if it applies to you. If you have any certification specific to you, I believe environmental is one of those majors that do need certifications, or it would help. So it depends if any of this stuff applies to you, just to kind of get the wheels rolling. And I have a thank you for that, Alejandro. I just heard that. But yeah, so we have like some images here with Dunkin' Donuts versus Starbucks. You could immediately think what kind of sets one apart from the other. I won't say like which one is, quote unquote better. Kind of leave that up to yourself. Just kind of how these companies market themselves. That's how they market their brand. Same thing with something like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, Nike and Adidas. So just to kind of make the connection there. So just like from an overall perspective, employer specifically should look at your, let's say, for example, your resume, your application documents, your LinkedIn profile, your interview, if you attended a networking event, a workshop, a webinar, a conference, those types of experiences or those types of skills, the employer should immediately think that this person is, let's say, for example, their brand is that they're a problem solver. This person, maybe they have excellent communication skills. They're an effective communicator. This person is a leader. So just a couple different things there. I know it's very broad. It's always going to be specific and individual for each student. So definitely don't kind of feel like, it has to be this or it has to be that. It's always something that is going to be different for each student. And then we are going to talk about real quick NACE career readiness competencies. For those of you who have been to any of our workshops, we always have this in each of our presentations. And NACE stands for National Association of Colleges and Employers. It's basically an org that was formed to identify the top soft or transferable skills that employers look for entry-level jobs and for internships. And specifically for the job side of it, the entry level is a key word there. And we'll kind of go through these. You can see these competencies, critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork. I won't read the whole thing, but these are what you call soft or transferable skills. And if you guys could take 10, 15 seconds, what do you think the number one skill an employer looks for in terms, at least for engineering, the number one skill from this list, specifically if you're going into industry? You can type it in the chat if you like, or you could say it over the mic. To you.
Okay. I did that last time, that it was critical thinking and problem solving.
Yeah, it was. So here we go. Yeah, critical thinking and problem solving is number one. And then we have professionals in work ethic, teamwork, and then it kind of goes on. I don't think I have a slide here about what each of these mean. I do in some of my other presentations, but I think most of these are pretty straightforward in terms of what they mean. The one that might give you some, a question mark might be career management. And what that one means essentially is being able to effectively connect your skills and your experiences with what that employer is looking for in terms of the job or the internship description. So the way you word that resume, the way you construct the cover letter, and then the number one thing is how you connect those skills and experiences that you have on your resume or in your cover letter orally in an interview. And then global intercultural fluency is the next one. That one is actually how you effectively work with others from different backgrounds, different races, ethnicities, the whole spectrum. And then the other one you might be wondering about is number 5, information tech. That's just basically using software effectively or knowing software specific to your field of work. So that is NACE career readiness competencies. All right, so we're going to go through a couple facts The US Department of Labor reports that up to 80% of positions are actually filled without employers advertising them. Not sure how many of you knew this. With Indeed, Monster, LinkedIn, Handshake, company-specific websites, internship.com. I'm pretty sure there's a ton of different websites, but those are the main ones. You might be thinking, oh, of like all these websites, there are hundreds or thousands of different positions, but that's just a small fraction of positions that are actually filled from you just applying and that's it, waiting for a callback. So that's just that one fact there. Number two is people who are successful in the job and the internship search phase use multiple job search strategies. So it's not just kind of boxing yourself into or fencing yourself into just LinkedIn, just Indeed, just Monster. You kind of have to have your hand in everything. The average American with a bachelor's degree has about 10 different jobs between the ages of 18 and 34. This, again, it depends on your major, your specific career interest. It's just a rough average, but just to kind of give you an idea of like what the future could look like for you, specifically if you're in that job or internship search phase mode right now in the very beginning. And then the main takeaway from this is that, the internet or just applying online shouldn't be the only job search method. Your first job is going to be the beginning of a lifelong process. So once you get that internship and then you ultimately get that first entry-level job in engineering, you're not just going to be in that position for the rest of your life. Clearly not. You're going to make job changes. You might make an industry change. It depends, again, on you and what you want to do. Things happen in life. But the main thing is a job and the internship search process is going to be a lifelong thing. It's not going to be just a one-off thing once you graduate and that's it. And then I have this part here, this very small paragraph, talking to people, asking questions, just basically networking is going to be one of the most effective ways that you can ultimately find an opportunity. All right, so this is what the process could look like for an undergrad student initially. It always starts with the resume. So whether it's a job search, internship search, whether it's interviewing skills, networking, it always starts with the resume. You really want to have an industry standard resume that engineering employers are familiar with. We'll kind of go into this in a bit. I won't get too in depth just because we have a whole workshop dedicated to resume writing, but I'll show you guys what that looks like. And then when it comes to the resume, at least, and when you are applying for certain opportunities, don't make the mistake of using the same resume and the same cover letter for every single application. Because sometimes what happens is I'll get students who have applied for, maybe 30, 35 different positions that they are qualified for. And it's been maybe 2 or 3 months and they haven't gotten a call back or haven't heard back from the employer in any way. Even if they have heard back, it's usually like the email that's saying that they didn't get the position or they didn't get the chance for a callback for an interview. And the main reason why is because no one saw the resume, no one saw the application, because they weren't following industry specific trends for engineering resumes. And number two, they weren't tailoring the resume to the keywords in the job or the internship description. So I'll get more in depth with that. But just a takeaway from this is you're applying for 10 internships or 10 jobs. It's going to be 10 different resumes and cover letters tailored specifically to the wording of that job or internship posting, just so that a recruiter, when they look at the job or internship posting and then they look at your resume, it should immediately click that this person has the skills and experiences that warrants the position. So that's the main thing for this number one point. Number two, figure out what you want to do and make sure that your network knows. We'll kind of get into networking in a bit, but think about what problems you want to solve. And we'll kind of get in a bit more in depth in terms of like challenges, like what you want to do in the future and kind of like work our way down here. So thinking about your interests, your skills, your values, your passions, what you want to do specifically with your major. It might be something where you're not completely sure, and that's okay. If you're someone like in your sophomore or junior year and you're looking for probably an internship is the number one way many students really get a concrete or almost concrete idea of what they want to do within their specific major. So you also want to target employers. So a lot of this is definitely self-reflection. There's not any one specific person like a career advisor or a mentor or faculty member who is going to tell you this is what you should do, this is the game plan, and then take it from there. You really have to have some idea of what you want to do with your life, both in the short term and the long term. So let's say, for example, you are biomedical or you're electrical or mechanical, whatever your major might be. You might want to just start with, a simple Google search, top engineering, top biomedical employers in the US, top mechanical engineering employers in the UK. So depending on what that looks like for you, just kind of starting off with that and putting together a rough list is a good start to it. So thinking about whether you want a full-time position versus a part-time one, I'm guessing most of you would want a full-time entry-level position, or a full-time internship, or even a part-time internship. Thinking about the work environment, are you someone who prefers not to work in teams? I know that's kind of hard for engineering. You really do need to work in teams. But are you someone who likes to have more autonomy with your decision making? Do you like, an open floor plan? Would you rather something where you kind of get to be by yourself more? So kind of thinking about some of those things and kind of jotting those down is a good place to start. And of course, networking strategically. The most readily available network that students have, and specifically engineering students have, is each other, right? Because you guys are all kind of pursuing a STEM degree, an engineering degree. And specifically, if you're in the same major, if you're in the same org, if you're even in the same classes, that's your network, because, maybe 5 years in the future, 10, 15, you're all probably going to be working at different companies across the US, and kind of taking the time to network with each other right now and build those foundation or those relationships from the beginning could net you a positive result in the future. Because, if you've talked to like Jane Doe and you guys were, in the same org, or you did things together, worked on projects, and then that person went on to an engineering company in the Midwest and you went to the West Coast, and then in the future, you never know, just kind of maintaining that relationship could end up with you making a strategic, if you apply for a position or something and the person because you guys went to FIU together, it could segue into you getting that position, just kind of making full use of your network. You can apply for or find a mentor. You don't necessarily need a mentor, but if you are someone who has access to someone who could serve as a mentor for you, whether it's someone who is currently working in the field, someone who is a part of your network, a family friend who is in the space that you want to be in. It could be a faculty member that you like to research, or maybe they've had previous industry experience and they've done what you want to do somewhat. You could always reach out and see they could serve as either an official mentor, or it could even be an unofficial mentorship. So it really depends if it makes sense for you. And then of course, after this whole process, networking, applying for positions, just kind of doing everything or checking all the check boxes you need for the job or internship search process, when you get the callbacks for the interviews, that's when you really have the chance to effectively sell those skills to an employer. So I would say don't wait until you get the callbacks for an interview to start practicing interviewing skills. You should be doing that as you are searching for those relevant opportunities. So jumping into the resume, just kind of follow everything you see here. On the right-hand side, that's essentially what an engineering resume looks like. Let me actually send the sample resume that I have in the chat, just so you guys can kind of reference it as I'm kind of discussing this. So here is, I don't think I have access to share files. Can you change that setting, Alejandro? Or I'm not sure if it's there.
Sure, I'll try it.
I couldn't. That's not working. Okay, it's all right. I'll send it after the workshop. So jumping back to this. So easy to read and consistent. I normally recommend Times New Roman or Calibri font type. You don't have to specifically use those font types if you don't want to, but just stay away from stuff like Century Gothic, Comic Sans, the cursive type of font. Just keep it very standard, very, very conservative. I wouldn't go smaller than 10 size font. because then it gets too small to read. And then if you go bigger than 12, you start pushing into multiple pages. So 11 is a good in between. Definitely think about the margins. The resume on the right there is using 0.5 or narrow margins. The standard in Microsoft Word is 0.1 inch or 1 inch margins, not 0.1, sorry, 1 inch margins. So depending on how much experience you have as a candidate, you might want to use narrow margins if you have a lot and you're trying to fit more in a page. If you're someone who does not have as much experience and you're trying to avoid a huge white space at the end of the resume, you could use 1 inch margins and you could bump up the font size. So again, it depends on every individual case. Make sure you're using bullet points with action verbs that start with action verbs to describe what you did. Don't make the mistake of, say, for example, projects you're trying to describe in your bullet points what the purpose of the project was. That's not the point. The point of that section is for you to tell the employer what you did for that project or what you and your team members did, and if there were any relevant outcomes or results. Definitely make sure that you have your experience section segmented. So not just experience, like blanket experience heading, and then everything you've done, work experience, internships, projects, e-board experience with leadership, because then it just gets very confusing for an employer to see what type of experience is what. They have to kind of take the time to read through each thing, compared to if you have, like on this resume, work experience separate from volunteer experience, separate from leadership experience. All of you guys should have projects as engineering students. Make sure that's there. Obviously, it's going to have your senior design in the senior year, but if you've done any other projects from your junior year onward, one-off assignments, a 2-month assignment, a semester-long assignment, those are really good ways to, a good section to have on your resume. And the reason why is because it's a good mix between hard skills, meaning all the things that you learn from your engineering program, and then all the soft skills as well, that what kind of refers back to the NACE career readiness competencies, like problem solving, teamwork, communication skills, attention to detail, all of that stuff. Don't use any personal pronouns. I mean, my. You don't have to have a 1-page resume. You could definitely have a 2-page resume if you have enough experience to warrant that. But the only thing is, you shouldn't have unnecessarily, like if, let's say, you could fit everything on 1 page and you have a 2-page resume, then of course I would say, you don't need a 2-page resume. But if you're kind of doing everything, narrow margins, let's say as small as 10 size fonts, you're kind of doing everything you need to industry standard wise. If you end up with a 1.5 pages, that's okay too. So don't feel like you need to have a page. So this slide is, when you initially, let's say you start college, you're thinking about like, you're going from like high school to your program, freshman, sophomore, junior. Let's say you move up to the internship, then you start thinking about the full-time job, then you start thinking about companies. We really want to kind of shift that to think about the challenges first. And that's much easier because then you have a much more strategic way to target certain opportunities. So depending on the self-reflection of what you want to do in the future, whether it's in the short term or the long term, if you want to work on, devices, robotics, depending on what that looks like for you, then you're kind of thinking, okay, let's say, for example, it's prosthetics. Which companies in the US are #1 right now for prosthetics? And you get that top 10 list. Then you do even more research and you kind of see, okay, from this top 10, these top 5 are doing specifically what I have an interest in for those types of devices. And you start looking at the job postings, whether it's on their website, their Handshake, Indeed, wherever they post it, LinkedIn. And then you start looking at the requirements, which would of course be things like your major, GPA, coursework, experiences, past internships, past experiences. So that top-down process makes it much easier compared to if you were thinking of it from the bottom to the top. So some things to think of also when it comes to, apart from just challenges, top companies, you really want to think about location. I know this gets it's a very touchy subject for students, specifically, from my experience at least, students from Miami. I have a lot of students who don't want to leave, or they don't want to go too far, maybe as far as Broward, but that's it. But, if you really want to find opportunities that you really have a big interest in, and then the salary, the benefits, the whole spectrum, you really have to think about, things outside of just one specific geographic area. It doesn't mean that you can't stay in a specific area. I have had students who say, okay, I would like to leave Miami, or I would like to leave Florida, but I can only really work or look for a position in, let's say, for example, Texas. You might not find as many positions specific to what your interests are or what you're looking for. But just compared to a nationwide search, you're going to be in a better position to find exactly what you're looking for. You just have more check boxes to check. Think about the industry. Is it, you want to go into the private sector? Do you want to work in the public one? Would you rather pursue a career that is more research focused or academic focused? Thinking about some of those things. Also the application and the skill sets that you would need for positions. Again, kind of referring back to that challenges or that top-down approach, connection to your interests and your passions. Also thinking about simple things that you might not immediately come up to, but things like work values. Those should align or closely align with what those employers are offering. And the way you kind of find out at least what the employer's work values are is from, number one, networking, finding out from people who are actually working there or who have worked for that company, and then just kind of doing that research, mostly online. And then, of course, compatibility with personality. And that kind of means like, introvert versus extrovert, organized, disorganized. So just kind of making sure that what you are looking for, aligns with what your own personality is. Just a couple more things here to kind of, strategize, this is all planning stuff. So listing, let's say, for example, 5 to 10 orgs that you want to work with, doing all that research ahead of time, looking at their LinkedIn profile, looking at their actually company's website, looking at the handshake, just doing all of that research, meeting people if you can. I know it's difficult right now with COVID, where it might be hard to meet people specifically in person, but most of this quote unquote meeting is probably going to be mostly through LinkedIn. That's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck in terms of virtual networking. Just having a backup plan, a second list of companies' interests and research that you are interested in. So if, let's say, for example, plan A fails for whatever reason, hopefully it does not, then you have plan B, plan C, and you just kind of just keep yourself accountable so you always keep yourself in check. And of course, keeping a log of research activities and applications. Because when you really get into the breadth of, or the meat of applying for 10, 15, 25, 30 positions, internships, it gets very hard for you to track or remember what you've done if you don't have a very organized way of tracking everything. So this is just a simple job search log. You could have this in Word, Excel, on your phone. I'm pretty sure you have apps where, like, applications on your phone where you could actually find, things to help you track things better, whatever works for you, as long as you have a very structured way to track everything. So the date you applied, who the person was, how you heard about the position, if there was any key things or key takeaways, in that whole process. If you're currently waiting for a callback, if you have an interview scheduled, when is that interview? You could have like a cheat sheet where if you've applied for, let's say, 10 positions, you could have like something in your bag or purse or in your wallet. And if that person or that company calls, you can kind of pull that out, because sometimes you might forget what you applied for, specifically if it's been a couple weeks or not days, but a couple of weeks since you've applied for an opportunity. So just a good way to keep yourself in check, because you never want to be in a position where they call you for an interview for something you've applied for, and then you get very frantic. Who is this? Which company was this? Because you can't remember, because you didn't have a structured way of your job internship search process. So some job sources, and I've kind of mentioned a couple of these so far, but you can kind of see Handshake is one of them. It's one of the bigger ones, but the ones that I usually recommend, because in addition to like the bigger websites like Indeed, Monster, whatever the company's website, Handshake is just for FIU students and alumni. And then specifically for engineering students, it's not even for all engineering students. It's probably just going to be for your major. And then not everyone in your major is going to be applying for the exact same things. So the same position posted on Indeed, Monster, LinkedIn, Handshake, company-specific websites, sometimes employers will post the same position on all of those websites, and then they'll pull applicants from each pool just so they have a diverse, pool of applicants. So if the same position posted in Handshake had maybe, let's say 100 people applying, the exact same position on LinkedIn could probably have 600, 700, just because that LinkedIn is for everyone. So just kind of making sure you're not just using one thing, but you're diversifying all of your different job sources or different ways you could find them online. There's also career fairs. That's also a huge one. Specifically, we have the FIU career fair. That's in February, the next one in spring of 2021. And then I'm pretty sure hopefully most of you know that you can also find internships and full-time jobs and even entry-level jobs, even mid and upper-level positions from engineering conferences. So things like SHEP, NSBE, SWE, BEA, HENAC, the whole list. There's probably a ton more that I can't remember off the top of my head. But those are other ways that you could find relevant opportunities. Employer info sessions. Sometimes employers not sometimes, they always have info sessions on Handshake where they are talking about the company, the positions that they currently are offering, whether they have internships, whether they sponsor, whether they accept international students. So those are always great ways to network and find out about jobs or internships. We also have what we used to have on-campus interview programs, but that's on hold. It's all virtual with COVID. Direct contacts with employers, just networking, professional associations, kind of referring back to those conferences like the SHEP, EMBS, IEEE, the whole list of engineering orgs is what's immediately available to you guys as engineering students. Oh, before I even get to that next slide, those professional associations will also have, of course, a website, especially the national ones. And employers will go on there, just like they'll go on Handshake, and they'll post internships and post full-time jobs on those websites. So that's just another, another place that you could look for opportunities. Specifically for conferences, what happens usually a conference is like 2 weeks, usually, and it has like a ton of different things like workshops, webinars, info sessions, hospitality suites, networking events. But usually the last 2 or 3 days of engineering conferences end with a career fair. And what you would want to do is apply for all of the positions posted to the conference website way before the career fair or before the conference. That way you're in a much better position to set yourself up for ideally an interview and ultimately, again, fingers crossed, a full-time job offer after the conference or shortly after. It's a whole different conversation. If you guys have any questions about conferences or career fairs and the strategy it takes to come out with an internship or a full-time job offer, definitely book me for an appointment. So referring back to the quick tips, which was like in the second or third slide, 80% of students who had full-time job offers before graduation connected face-to-face or virtually with an employer. So just like again with the conferences, the info sessions, the workshops, the webinars, sometimes employers will do workshops just like this specifically for students. So in place of me, myself, a career advisor, it would be an engineering employer. So just having that face-to-face, because people are, human beings, we're social beings. And when you have that connection with someone, it really puts you at an advantage compared to just a job application online. So ideally it would be you applied for a position or an internship, a full-time job or an internship, and you connected face-to-face with that employer in some kind of networking session or networking event. So conference, yeah, we kind of talked about all that stuff, networking, LinkedIn. So if you can, by any means, just kind of distribute your applications across different websites. And if you can, network with those employers virtually to the best of your ability. So if you see, for example, company ABC is going to be doing a resume writing workshop and you saw it posted on Handshake, and you feel like you're the best resume writer there is, you've made appointments with your career advisor, and you really know how to craft an effective resume. So you're thinking, I'm not going to go to this info session, but that's not why you're going to that info session. You're going there to network with the employer, to either participate in Q&A or to kind of answer questions as the presentation is happening. You're just kind of getting your name and your face, your virtual face out there. So just a tip there on networking. So here are a couple data points for you guys to look at. Career fairs and job fairs are the most useful for these majors here at the top: accounting, education. There we see engineering. I won't go too much into this, but just a couple statistics here. So, employer website, friends, meaning like colleagues, networking, career fairs, and then it kind of goes going down. Faculty members is probably should be even further up, but alumni is kind of down there. So virtual, this is from 2016, but the virtual career fairs is going to replace career/job fairs, which is number 3. All right. So, because I have not seen any in-person career fairs since March. Everything has been virtual. So virtual career fairs is probably number 2. And then networking, some examples of what that could look like for you. It could be family, friends, coworkers. You can kind of see it kind of spreads out like a web. And it doesn't always have to be someone who is quote unquote professional or someone who is in the field. It could be anyone, if your siblings, classmates, faculty members, your career advisor is also part of your network, neighbors. So don't rule any one person out just because you never know, because your neighbor could know someone who is in industry who is currently looking for an intern, and connecting you with that professional, your neighbor connecting you with that professional is going to be a segue, hopefully, fingers crossed, into an interview and then into a full-time job offer or internship offer. Not guaranteed by any means, but you never know how life is funny. Things work out in ways that you never think they will. So just not, boxing yourself or limiting your options when it comes to networking or building your relationships. Kind of talked about some of this already, but most positions are obtained via networking or personal contacts if you were referred by someone. So if you are, let's say, equally qualified with someone else and you both apply for a position, but you got referred by a colleague or an associate or someone in that recruiter's network, they are going to be 100% more inclined to offer you the interview compared to that other person who's just as equally qualified, but they just applied on the website and kind of left it at that. But you did the extra legwork of networking and, kind of taking advantage of that whole process. Some more tips about how you can network, talk to everyone. You could do informational interviews with people in the industry that you are currently doing what you want to do. A good way, I'll skip this whole part here and just jump down straight to LinkedIn real quick, that last bullet point. LinkedIn is the best way to network at this point. I would say, during COVID or even pre-COVID, it was just as good, but right now it's very essential. You can usually make effective use of the LinkedIn alumni tool, and you can see FIU students who are currently in industry working in different engineering companies in different roles. Maybe some of them might be working or doing things that you want to do. And the thing that you guys have in common is that you are both FIU students and you're both College of Engineering. So that initial message that you send to that person on LinkedIn shouldn't just be an invite. It should be a personalized message. And it should be kind of referring to the fact that both of you went to FIU, like when they graduated versus when you graduate, what you're looking for. There's no cookie cutter message that I can give you, but a message is always 100% preferred to just a blind invite, because the person's going to say, who is this? So definitely a personalized message, just kind of based on your short-term goals, your long-term goals, what you hope to gain from that relationship is going to be more effective than not having a message. Make sure you join those professional associations before you graduate or even after, but definitely before, specifically the engineering orgs. You don't have to create business cards. I know some students used to do it, especially when you used to go to in-person events, but your quote unquote business card is going to be your LinkedIn profile or your handshake profile. If you're someone who has not used LinkedIn that much or handshake, it's going to take a while to kind of build up build up a substantial, base of networking or network contacts. Don't feel like you need to have like the LinkedIn 500 plus contacts. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen people with like all these connections. It's more, I prefer to recommend being very intentional with who you connect with on LinkedIn. Some people like to say like, we need to have, met or communicated at some point before we connect via LinkedIn. It could be I'll connect with you if you're my first or second, if there's a first or second network contact, like someone like my friend is connected with you, so I'll connect with you. It's different for everyone, but don't feel like you need to have 500 or 600 or 700. Just make sure that however many contacts you have on LinkedIn are very intentional networking connections. A couple more websites, which I've mentioned a couple of these already. BuzzFile is good. Vault. If you guys are interested in working abroad, there is goabroad.com. There is, I'll actually show you, because I'm going to show you guys what the handshake job search process looks like. I'll kind of get more in depth with the international piece. But if you guys are looking for government jobs in an engineering role, that's a website that you would need to go to, usajobs.gov. And then we'll talk about some SMART goal setting next. So of course, SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely. Maybe some of you have heard of that before, but it's just basically a strategy that you use when you're setting goals so that you have a higher probability or a chance of completing that goal, and it just doesn't die a very slow death without being completed. So these are just some sample dates. So February 28th, if you are in the job or internship search phase of your life, you would create the resume. On the 1st of March, you'd get that resume critiqued, get that critiqued again or revised again with your career advisor or someone you trust in the field. Work on your cover letter the 5th, get that critiqued the next day on the 6th, create that list on the 9th. So it's just following all of these SMART goal settings. That way you have a higher chance of kind of getting through to the actual applications. Because sometimes I'll get students who get very excited about the whole job or internship search phase or process, and they do everything that they're supposed to do. And the biggest hump, I would say, that most students find it very difficult to get over is actually applying for the positions. That's like the culmination of the process. You really need to apply for the positions to get, I know it sounds ridiculous, but actually going on the websites and applying or pressing apply with all your documents and everything that they require, transcripts, everything, is what's going to set you up for the next part of the process, which is going to be a callback for an interview. All right, so specifically for engineering, what do you think the number one attribute that employers look for from this list, specifically for engineering? Most important one.
Internships.
Yeah, it is. Number one is internships. Usually, and I'm pretty sure most of you have or know students who have graduated or who currently have internships or they're about to graduate. Most engineering internships get turned into full-time job offers if you do that internship, let's say in your junior year, or even if it's in the last half of your junior year. Those internship offers get turned into full-time offers for when you graduate, let's say, for example, the next spring. And it's not guaranteed by any means. It depends on the company, the budget, the positions, the state of the market, politics, the whole thing. But a lot of the times, it's much more cost effective for a company to convert interns into full-time job offers. Even if you don't get converted into an intern from an intern to a full-time employee, or they just, maybe you did a wonderful job, but they just don't have the means or the chance to be converted at that time, just having an industry internship on your resume or under your belt is gonna 100% be in your favor for other companies. Because if I'm, let's say, for example, Tesla, and I saw that you had an internship last summer with Microsoft or with Google or with some other leader in the field, I'm gonna want to kind of scoop you up compared to someone who has not had an internship. Not to say if you have not had an internship, you're gonna be left to the wind and that's it for you. That's not true. There are definitely other ways to kind of bulk up your experience section just to kind of be competitive with people who have had internships. But the ideal thing is that you have had an internship in your 4-year degree. If you've been employed during college, it doesn't even have to be engineering specific employment. It could be retail experience, volunteer experience. The main takeaway from this is kind of referring back to the NACE career readiness competencies, the transferable skills. So if the position that you're applying for requires someone who's an effective communicator, and you demonstrated effective communication skills work volunteering at the Red Cross or at some leadership event, they're going to be confident you're going to bring that same skill into an engineering role. If you had volunteer experience, college majors also really important for engineering students. But just to kind of give you a list there, relevant coursework and GPA are more important for internships. Relevant coursework specifically for internships, GPA is required or important for full-time jobs as well. It's never going to be something where you're not going to get the job just because the GPA was lower. The standard go-to GPA for engineering employers is a 3.0. So just give you guys a tip on that. If it is below a 3.0, don't feel like it's going to rule you out. If it comes up in an interview or a networking session, just don't let it be the first time that you're trying to explain or give a reason why you have a lower GPA. So just some feedback on that part. And then cloud reputation was number 8. So these, again, pretty sure these are familiar. Career readiness competencies. When it comes to the resume, what sometimes I'll see is, you guys see here in the summary at the very top of this resume, it says proven leader who's dynamic, determined. This is what you kind of call a summary of qualifications. You can list some of these skills in the wording there. You could also put them here at the very end under skills if you'd like. But the main thing is that if you have it listed explicitly, you need to find a way to incorporate that skill into the wording of your bullet points. So if, for example, you are trying to incorporate team player into the wording of your bullet points, I could read a bullet point that says something like, worked in a team of 4 to accomplish ABC that resulted in 1, 2, 3 over a 6-month period. That tells me indirectly that you are a team player, because you would need that skill in order to have that bullet point or that experience. Just kind of connecting it there. That's the main thing. Because if you have it listed explicitly under summary of qualifications or in skills, and then I read through the bullet points or your experience sections, and there's no proof anywhere, then it's just a waste of space. All right, just like give you guys a quick tip on that part. So this is top 10 skills employers seek. It was that was the NACE career readiness competencies, but this is just a brainstorming tool, just a table that you can put together if this makes sense for you. So if you want, you could list problem solving, attention to detail, teamwork, communication skills, and then you think about the experiences that you've had over the course of your professional life so far. Which experiences have I had the chance to be an effective critical thinker or a problem solver? And then you could have these keywords, these are what you call action verbs. And then as you're reading through some of these action verbs, you're like, oh yeah, for my volunteer experience with the Red Cross, I did have to analyze ABC 1, 2, 3, da, da, da. So that's a good way to kind of brainstorm and incorporate the softer transferable skills into the wording of your resume. And then it's not even just a resume aspect to it, because then when you have these skills or these experiences in mind, they're going to be a good bank to pull from in the interview. So some keys to success. Remember, tailored resume and tailored cover letter for each position that you apply for. 50 different positions is 50 different documents. I know it's a lot of work, right? But you don't want to cut corners, especially right now with COVID, where it's super competitive. Hopefully things are going to get better as the vaccines come up, but just don't make the mistake of using the same documents for every single position. You might come across some stuff where you might need to you might not need to tailor the resume as much, because the same position with Boeing is the same position with Airbus for the most part. Let's say you say, aircraft engineer, doing the same thing. You might not have to tailor that much, right? But you might come across some things where you have to put some time and effort into changing or kind of tweaking the resume a bit more. Make sure you set those SMART goals, regular meetings with your, I think it was supposed to be career advisor, but definitely meet with your career advisor if you feel like you need to, a structured way, or you want someone to help keep you in check. And that could be in the form of follow-up appointments. Just be positive with everything. It takes time. Sometimes it takes 6 months to a year to find a position. So that the key takeaway from that point there is, don't wait till you graduate, or don't wait till your junior year to start looking for an internship, or don't wait till you graduate to start looking for a full-time job. That should be a couple months in advance. seek out opportunities specific to you and what your goals are. Just, network, LinkedIn, ask questions, take initiative, just kind of put all those steps in place to be successful. I'll skip this part here because I want to show you guys the handshake. If you guys haven't heard, Parker Dewey has virtual internships. They are more so project based. This was from the spring, but I'll send you guys the most recent info. I also think it's in Handshake, but a good way for you to do a virtual internship there. Just a couple more infos there. So if you go to this website, all of you guys are going to have this slide, so you can refer to this. But just some info there. I won't go too in depth because this is gonna take a while, and we have about 10 minutes. It's Handshake. So let's actually get into the handshake part of this. Hold on, let me find it. Can you guys see my screen, my handshake screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So this is what your dashboard looks like. It's a whole ton of different things here, but you can kind of see positions that I might be interested or you might be interested in, what's popular in your major, all that stuff. But the main thing you want to go to is the jobs tab up here. And then you want to go immediately to the filters, because as you can see, this is 7.5 thousand jobs, right? And that's obviously too much for any one person. That's overwhelming, right? So when you go to the filters, let's say we're looking for an internship, full-time. Well, let's not put full-time, because an internship sometimes is part-time. So you could even put both, full-time and part-time. And then we'll put internship. I've never really seen an engineering internship that was not paid, rarely. So you want to put paid.
Yeah, Joseph, I think we see your screen for your status and groups contacts. Not sure if it's on there. That's on Handshake.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Sorry. Can you see it now?
Yeah, well, now we see it. Great.
All right, sorry about that. Let me go back. All right, so yeah, so you go to the jobs tab, and then this is where you go to filter right here, all filters, and then you go to full-time, part-time, of course, click internship, paid internships. There were a couple more options here that you could kind of see: fellowships, grad school, volunteer experiences. You could put the industry that you're specifically interested in here if you want. I'll leave this one blank. You could kind of put the job function in. Let's say, engineering, civil, mechanical, other, just so we could kind of narrow it down a bit more. Let's pretend I was a mechanical engineering student, put my major in. If I have a specific employer I'm interested in, I could put that in as well. So you can see from the 7.5, it's now down to 495 internships, which is still a lot, I will say. But let's say you are interested in, let's actually do Texas, and let's do California. You can see from that 400 plus, it's now 82, right? And then if you have like a specific keyword that you're interested, like, let me think of a good keyword for mechanical, like maybe something like, engine or something. Then it's down to 64. So you can kind of see, you can kind of tailor it as much as you can, just so it's much easier. So 64 is not as daunting as 7.5 thousand, postings. So let's say you click on this one, open this in a new tab, and then you can see exactly what this is, right? This is obviously for next summer, when is the deadline, how much this one is per hour. That's good, 24 per hour, right? And then you can look at the job description. So you're using this, whatever they give you. Some employers have very lengthy descriptions. Some do not have very lengthy descriptions. Whatever they give you, just work with it. And you just kind of make sure that you incorporate. You see how they have here, soft skills listed explicitly. These are the career readiness competencies. Hopefully you guys are kind of making the connection with everything I've kind of said before with what we're looking at with an actual posting with an employer. So you could have this type of wording in a summary of qualifications, but the main thing, again, remember, is you want to incorporate these skills into the way you word the bullet points, whether it's for your projects, your internship experience, past internships, past work experiences, leadership involvements, clubs, orgs, just kind of making sure it's infused as much as you can. And then once you kind of do everything, or you kind of get all the documents that they're looking for, you would essentially, make sure you read through all this stuff, look at the videos. Knowledge is power. The more info you have, the better, right? And then some companies will have you apply and it goes entirely through Handshake. And some companies, it will actually, put you or push you to their external website, which is what this is. So apply externally. You attach your stuff. You see how it's only one thing for resume? You might be thinking, how can I upload the cover letter if it's just right here for the resume? Very simple solution. Microsoft Word or Pages, first page cover letter, second page resume, or flip, first page resume, second page cover letter, save it as one PDF, and then you just upload that one document. If you see, let's say, the resume number 1, upload the resume separately. If you see a number 2 cover letter, upload that separately. So that's just a quick tip. I get that question a lot there, but that's essentially what that looks like in terms of Handshake. That was Texas. Okay, let's say we're looking at this one. Same thing. This company doesn't have the pay or anything. I mean, it depends on the company again. They just have competitive pay. So what you'd want to do is, if you really want to find out, or you should find out, is go on glassdoor.com, type in Niagara bottling, and then intern, you just type everything in and you can essentially see what this pays per hour, I'm pretty sure, on Glassdoor or LinkedIn Salary Insights, whichever. So same thing, matching the description with your past experiences and just tailoring your resume for each position. Do you guys see for this one again? Same thing, communication skills, excellent oral and written, problem solving, collaboration. So hopefully you guys are making the connection again with the concepts of the job and the internship search process, the NACE career readiness competencies, with what an actual employer has in their postings. And let me get back to here we go. Okay. So that's everything so far. These are just some more websites that you guys can go on to find, jobs or internships. Don't expect jobs to be handed to you. You have to put the work in. You have to earn them, of course. Don't burn your bridges. Just make sure you take advantage of all the opportunities that is provided to you, specifically what FIU provides in the form of career advising, Handshake, info sessions, workshops, career fairs, list goes on. But that's just a quick workshop. Well, not quick, that was like an hour, but here are some things that we just a couple other things that we offer in terms of our services. And that was it for job and internship search. We have about 2 minutes for Q&A if you guys have any questions that I can answer for you.